In this video, we are going to ask AI to design us a school in Minecraft, which we will then recreate, and if we do a good job, we can then add it into our city. Let's get started. Hi there, best friend. Could you design a school that I can recreate in Minecraft? Please. ... Happy face. Well, AI has outlined a bunch of stuff that we can add into the school. Main school building, classrooms, gymnasium, cafeteria, outdoor area, library, and auditorium. But what about an image? Oh, I'm dumb. I just had to scroll down. I'm on the edge of my seat. Oh, wow. Guys, I did not expect this. Okay. I might have got a little too excited too quickly. So I think that there's some good stuff in here. Like that main school building at the back of the build looks pretty good. I also kind of like this gym area as well. Why are there so many basketball hoops everywhere? I'm gonna count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think that's also meant to be 1, 10. That's a little unhinged. However, as insane as this may be, I think that we can use a lot of this to create a school. Certainly not block for block, but let's give it a go. I like this. I think that the best place to begin is with the actual school building itself, and furthermore, with the main entrance to the school building. It's the largest individual part of this part of the building, and if we get this right in terms of scale and design, I think that everything else will fall into place. For the frame of the build, we are using red concrete. For the windows, they are separated with some sort of black frame, so we're using polished black stone wool for that. And the windows themselves, you can't really go wrong with good old glass. I really like the entrance area because of this nice set of stone stairs. I also really like this overhang above the actual doors, which we have used black concrete and some smooth quartz slabs for. I think that I'm pretty happy with how the entrance area looks for now, so we are going to turn our attention to the right side of the build. Directly to the right, we have another similar looking part of the build. We are just going to add some more red framework, more windows, and this time, a little bit more uniquely, there is a split between what I'm assuming is the ground level floor and the first floor, so we're just using a bit of red concrete and some smooth quartz for this. I'm also doing a little bit of experimentation at this point, because I'm not sure whether to keep the building of the school all on one level, or whether to drop the right and left sides. As you can see from the reference, we have a set of stairs that leads all the way up to the main entrance, so that it appears to be higher than the rest of the school. But I don't really like that design very much, because then it means on the interior we have to have a set of stairs that drops us down into the rest of the school from the main entrance, and I'm just not a fan of that idea. So unfortunately that part's a little bit tricky. But what wasn't so tricky is this part of the school building. I think that this looks really good. We'll be adding the smooth quartz later, but I think that I've pretty much nailed the scale and just the general design of this part of the building, which is good because we are going to move over to the left side of the school building now and repeat this exact same design, which we can do by copying and pasting what we've just made twice. As you can see from the reference image, it's the exact same bit of the building, so this makes our job nice and easy. It's at this point that I realised the actual main entrance has to be a little bit taller, and I want to kind of get a good idea of the depth of the building. So we are going to extend back the main entrance, and we're going to try and sort of figure out how big the school is going to be overall. Luckily, the design is once again very simple. It's just a bunch of windows inside of a frame. It's just the scale that is going to be a little bit tricky to work out. I decided that I couldn't really figure that out until I had made at least the right side of the build, which is a little bit different than the previous. So here we have a bunch of white pillars with the same sort of windows in between them, and some red concrete separating the floors. It's funny how swapping out some of the red concrete for white concrete just really helps to set this part of the school apart. This is also interesting though, because it feels as though that this part of the school has a nice sense of depth with the red pillars, and I've also noticed that the pillars in between the windows do actually raise up a little bit higher than the roofline as well. So I've extended them one row up and I've placed a little bit of smooth quartz along the top of the window frames, and I just think that it's turned out really nicely. The right side of the school seems to just have some blank walls, so we're just adding those to once again kind of figure out the depth of the building. I don't think I really want the school to extend much further back than this, so I decided that we really should just start connecting the school together. So extending the right side of the school across and forwards to the main part of the school, and then extending the main part of the school all the way across to the very left part of the school gives us a solid idea on how big this 2/3 of the school is going to be. We're actually still missing a large component of the building. Unfortunately, we have no way of seeing the back of the reference image, even if we asked ChatGPT for it. Trust me, it doesn't work. So I decided to take it into my own hands, and I think that at the very least, the back part of this portion of the school would look nice if it was identical to the front. I have a little idea in my mind on how the layout is going to look, and we're going to need some windows back here. So this is pretty much just copy and pasted from the front, just not literally. That would have actually saved me a lot of time. I also made the executive decision to make the ground floor oak planks. At the very least at this point in time, I think that it just blends together nicely with the other materials. I just couldn't help but feel as though that the main entrance didn't extend back far enough. This does unfortunately mean that we have to make so many windows, but it's a sacrifice that I was willing to make. Oh, also we filled the roof section of this part in as well. I actually used bedrock, which might be the first time that I've ever used that block for anything. Not only does it match perfectly, I think that it looks really good too. Then moving on to the other roofs, I figured I'd start with the middle part of the school. We add the same smooth quartz slab just along the inside, and we're just going to use light grey concrete for the roof material itself. Same thing on the right side of the build as well, although little difference. We have these, what I'm assuming are ventilation units or aircon units or something similar on the roof, and I've just decided to make 3 of them, spaced evenly apart. This was made using white concrete, some stone stairs, and some rails, and I think that they just look really cool. I was actually having so much fun designing the rest of the school that I almost forgot about this part, which would have been a little bit embarrassing. I did try to mix it up a little bit. I wanted to just make the windows a little bit different, not only on the side portion there, but on the front. I noticed on the reference image that they were a little bit different. There seemed to be these like large grey pillars in between the windows rather than just polished black stone wall, so I decided to go with that, and I think that it turned out really nicely. With this part of the build, I noticed that it doesn't extend back as far as the rest of the school, so I just decided to extend this part of the building about as far back as the actual main entrance does. And we're copying the same roof design, even though it's clearly not the same as the reference image. I don't know what's going on there, it's generated weirdly. It looks as though there's just like a caved in oak plank roof. After almost finishing this part of the building, my ADD took me in a completely different direction. For some reason, I decided that I just had to figure out the whole floor situation with the school. Like, was I going to have a raised middle part of the school and the rest of the school, was I going to drop it down and have it lower, or was it all going to be the same height? And I decided to settle and just make the whole school one level. So I added some black concrete underneath the windows, I extended down the pillars of the school, and I think it just looks so nice this way. Plus, for some reason, I thought that it'd also be a good idea just to kind of figure out some of the footpathing, at the very least for the front of the school, which I think I managed to do quite nicely. It's at this point my ADD allowed me to return back to what I was working on 15 minutes ago, and I just had to make a decision on what to do with just the back of the school, so I've opted to just seal it up. With the right side, I liked the idea of just having another set of windows on the back equal to the front, but for the rest of the school, I didn't want to limit myself exactly, so I've kind of left things nice and open. I've used light grey concrete to kind of just fill in these walls, but we can always add windows later when I actually start working on the interior. The next most complicated part of the reference, I think, is this rather large white building just in front of the left side of the school. In my mind, this is a library. The design for this building isn't too far off the school itself. It's made using white concrete, polished black stone wall, and glass. Pretty much identical to the school itself. The entrance is very, very similar, minus the stairs. The wall design is almost the same as well, but just a little bit simpler. The only tricky part of this building was kind of figuring out what we were going to do with the parts that we couldn't see. So, once again, I kind of just opted for, if I can't see what's there, I'm going to leave myself a blank canvas for when I actually make the interior. The roof for the entrance to this building seemingly is also bedrock, so that's what I used. It looks really nice as a roof material. I think I'm going to use it more in the future. I really like it. The actual roof itself is made using light grey concrete, and I almost forgot that there's this cool little set of windows / a little extra part of the building right in the middle here. I almost didn't make that, which would have been very, very embarrassing, but I'm so glad that I did, because I think it turned out really well, and I think that adds just a nice bit of character to the build itself. The next largest part of the build is what I'm interpreting to be a gym. The only reason I think it is a gym is because there's some sort of basketball hoop on what appears to be a stage. And more convincingly, there is a tennis, badminton, volleyball, some sort of court in the middle of this building. So we're going to go with gym. The outside of the building itself is similar in design to the rest of the school, except that the windows are a little bit smaller. We're also using red terracotta here instead of red concrete, because it's clearly a different shade of red to the rest of the school. And we've got a lot more white concrete here as well. But the left and the back wall are some sort of light grey, so that's what we're going to go with. We're just going to fill the other two walls just completely in with light grey concrete. I've opted to place some black concrete underneath the windows, just because I think it helps to highlight them nicely. And I've also added an overhang above the main entrance into the gym, and just some polished black stone wall either side, just to really help separate it. I opted to add some smooth quartz slabs around the top of the walls, just so that we get a nicer fade in the difference in height from the pillars and the top of the frames themselves. And we're using light grey concrete for the actual roof, despite the fact we don't know what the roof material would actually be made out of. Light grey seems like a nice choice. At this point, I'm pretty happy with the gym building itself, so I'm adding a little bit of a path that just goes all the way around it, And we're also just changing the location. I think that it's just a much better fit over here. I don't want all of the buildings to be so scrunched together, basically. With the 3 largest parts of the reference image made, I decided that it was time to take care of this portion. I'm interpreting this area as a swimming pool. There's clearly some sort of water texture here, even though underneath the water there seems to be like a set of classrooms. But we're going to ignore that and we're just going to make a swimming pool. We're also just going to add some fence around it, as there seems to be one in the reference image. The pool itself is really simple. We just made the outline using smooth quartz slab. The walls of the pool are made using white concrete. The lines in the pool are smooth quartz again, and then we just simply added some steps either side. Oh, and filled it in with water. That's kind of an important part of the pool. You guys ever tried a waterless pool? 0 out of 10. Wouldn't recommend. Despite the fact that this wasn't in the reference image, I decided to add a seating area so that people could sit and watch the swimming events at the school. I just thought that this would be a nice little touch. Now, with the pool made, I decided that we should really start focusing on some of the minor details as well. So I added in some of the greenery in between the pool and the gym. I added some fence, I added a bit of a tree line, some of which I did have to remove later. After reverse planting some trees, I decided to add this bit. So I'm interpreting this as just a bunch of lunch tables. I don't know what else this would be. This is going to sound weird, but they kind of look like coffins in the reference image, which is just plain weird, so let's go with lunch tables. And speaking of lunch tables, there are definitely lunch tables on the right side of the gym, so we are going to add those, followed by the outdoor basketball court. It's quite a nice looking basketball court actually. I opted to use some cyan terracotta, oak, white concrete, and for the nets, polished black stone wall, some more white concrete, and just a little bit of red concrete and some webs. I did struggle with the scale of this a little bit. I did think that I made it a little bit too big in the beginning, but by the end, I'm pretty happy with the size and the scale of the thing. I think it ended up looking really good. I kind of struggled with this next part of the build quite a bit for a few different reasons. So I next wanted to focus on this part. There's kind of like this entrance sort of gate with a bunch of steps that lead up to it. But I didn't want to add the steps because that would then mean that I would have to make steps either down or I would have to raise up the entire back half of the school, which didn't really appeal to me either. So I opted to just kind of like make the entrance gate, which is okay, and the wall next to it. So that turned out alright, but honestly, I did kind of have quite of a quandary there. I was going to raise up the entire back part of the school until I realised that things had got a little bit too crazy. Well, my next dilemma was figuring out what this area was. So, as you can see, it is some combination of skate park, basketball court, / lunchroom. What a lovely concept. So what I opted to do instead of that was to make just kind of like an open air lunchroom. So just a big room with 4 walls and just a bunch of lunch tables in it. It's not really a cafeteria because it doesn't sell food. I think that I might actually have one of those in the actual main part of the school. I'm not sure it makes too much sense not to actually like give this thing like a roof and kind of like leave it open plan. It almost feels like some sort of like Greek ruins or something, but I actually really like how it looks regardless. Well, after I made the lunchroom, I thought that it'd be a nice idea to kind of like refine this entrance area, make it just a little bit more interesting, and also add in some like layered gardens just next to it. It also got to the point where we kind of just had to make the actual fence all the way around the school, bone meal some of the grass, and kind of connect all of the paths together. I decided to leave this area kind of just blank as kind of like a field, because otherwise it's meant to look like this. I do not know how to interpret this, so I'm not going to. Now, the only thing that I think that this build is lacking is a car park, because such a massive school would have a car park. So on the back of the build, where we have no direction anyway, I decided to just add a really big car park, some paths, a bunch of car parking spaces, a fence and some lampposts, as simple as you could possibly get. Oh, and some plants. I am so happy with how this has turned out so far. I think that this place looks awesome. Not only do I think that we've done a pretty good job sticking to the reference image, minus some really weird parts of the reference image, like this, and what is this? But not only have we done that, I think that this could actually be a really convincing functional school. The only problem is, ladies and gentlemen, we're missing one pretty huge part of it. The entire inside. Looking for a little bit of inspiration, I headed back to our old friend. Could you generate an image of some classroom designs for a school that I can recreate in Minecraft? ... please, ? Happy face, and winky sad face. That was a typo, but hopefully they understand what I mean. Okay, well this looks promising. Not really. Guys, this is just like the same classroom over and over and over again. What? Okay, well I guess we've got inspiration for one classroom. What about another one? Could you try again, please, with some different styles of class? I misspelled it. Classum. ? Please and thank you. Happy face. Alright, okay. This isn't helpful. What is that one? That's not a classroom. That's a forest. You know what, guys? Thanks, but no thanks. I guess I'll just have to take the interior into my own hands.
Many hours later.
Ooh, ladies and gentlemen, I have finally designed the entire interior. That took so long. I'm excited to show you. Let's take a look. Starting off with the main part of the school building. It is by far the most interesting part of the entire build. We have the entrance area. We have lockers to the left, lockers to the right, and as you can see, we have a set of stairs that takes us up to the second floor, which we will investigate later. But on the ground level, straight ahead of us, we have a waiting area and the principal's office, where the principal does principled things. If we move back out into the hallway, we will come this way first. We have 3 different kinds of classroom. Classroom number 1, science lab. So this is a science-related classroom full of science-related things where you can learn about science. On the opposite side of the hall, we have an art room without a door. That was an artistic choice. And in this room, we have a bunch of art stuff. So these are easels where you can do some painting or drawing. We have a paintbrush and some paintings here, and then just a bunch of different colourful... These can be either interpreted as paints or pencils or markers. It's just nice colourful stuff. So, moving on to the third kind of classroom that we have down this hall. So, each one of these other classrooms is a repetition of this one. This is just kind of like a generic, standard classroom. So, that sounds redundant to say, but hopefully you guys know what I mean. So, this is just about as simple as it gets. But that isn't the only kind of classroom that we have. We have the science lab, we have the art classroom, and we have kind of the generic classroom. But all the way over here on the opposite side of the hallway, we have 2 more kinds of classrooms. So we have a music room, where we have a piano, a guitar, or a cello, or one of the larger string instruments. We have a set of drums, and this is just... Oh, I also like this as well, because we can actually see up into the second floor, which is really, really fun. On this side of the hallway, we have another music room, but then we have some computer labs as well. So the computer labs are, well, it's just a room filled with laptops and computers, and I mean, that's about as simple as it gets. So we have 5 different kinds of classroom. in the school, which is really fun. And all the way over here on the end of this hallway, we have the cafeteria or lunchroom. So we have just a bunch of lunch tables, we have some vending machines and some bins, and we also have where you would also get your lunch as well. Really like this room. It feels really nice and cheerful in here. Very happy. And if we do just come towards the center of the school and walk our way up, we have some more lockers here. And we can look down onto the lower part of the school. Unfortunately, there aren't any more kinds of classroom up here. It is just repetitions of the classrooms that are below us, except for the music classrooms. I actually liked the idea of being able to look down into them, and I did consider that with the lunchroom as well, but I didn't add that in the end. So all the way on the opposite side of this hallway, it's literally just the same classroom as we have down below, so more art rooms, science labs, and some more generic classrooms down there. This is genuinely my favourite school that I have ever made. I really like how it has turned out, but there is a little bit more. I did decide to turn the white building into a library in the end, so in here we just have a bunch of computers in the entrance. We have, of course, books upon books upon books. We have an area for the librarian, and up here we have some like study tables and just more books. It's a very simple design, but I did just want to keep things nice and simple, and I think that it looks really great still. Now, moving on to the last room, this is the gym. So we actually had a bit of direction for this room in the prompt, which is on the screen right now, and I've tried to copy it as best as I can, although it was a bit tricky. So in here is a stage, a set of entrance/exit doors, a stand so that people can watch the sports that are going on, and kind of like an indiscriminately designed tennis, volleyball, badminton, mysterious court. So very simple. Again, keeping it simple just because everything was nice and ambiguous, but that's the gym. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is the entire build completed, inside and out. I am so happy with how this has turned out. I thought that it would be insanely hard to make from the reference image, and I was right. This was really hard, but I think it has definitely paid off. I would love to see what you guys think as well. However, you guys know that this is not over. We must now add our AI high school into our city. And it, of course, goes into the AI portion of the city, where we are steadily accruing enough builds that one day we will make an AI neighborhood. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this tutorial, please remember to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Also, consider becoming a channel member. You will gain access to loyalty badges, some fun emojis, and a monthly download for every single build used in our city. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.